Chapter 2502. Qi. Yiqing Luo hugged Qi's head. That plump tiger head, Yiqing Luo couldn't even hug it with one hand. But Yiqing Luo's 5 fingers grabbed onto Qi's fur as she raised her brows. Little Qi, who is your master? Qiao Jiao asked you to throw me away and you threw me away just like that? When the last word was spat out, Yiqing Luo intentionally emphasized the ending. Qi's huge tiger body shuddered slightly. The huge tiger eyes immediately revealed an aggrieved expression. Master? Sob. Qi didn't do it on purpose. Her childish voice was filled with a sense of grievance. Saying that, it even used its head and rubbed against Yiqing Luo's body bit by bit. A tiger as huge as a mountain was acting cute in front of her. What kind of feeling was that? Yiqing Luo expressed that she had raised a big cat. Speak. Why must you listen to Qiao Jiao? Yiqing Luo's heart was softened by Qi's cute actions, but she pretended to be angry on the surface. This little fellow obviously knew what this place was and what the opportunity that Zhou Xian mentioned was. But it refused to say anything. Not letting this little fellow explain anything. Even her own war pet, her own little fellow, could do little tricks behind her back. Was she still considered as a qualified master? As expected, when it saw Yiqing Luo's straight face, Qi immediately cried and acted cute. Because Qi wants to help master. Under Qi's childish explanation, Yiqing Luo finally understood. This sealed ground, what kind of place was it? He finally understood. Why Zhou Xian said that this was her opportunity. And the reason why Qi and Qi Yan would appear here. So, the Miao tribe's forbidden land was sealed. It was one of the 4 sacred beasts. Black Tortoise. Just earlier, after Qi and Black Tortoise had a short contact, Qi then understood the reason why the Black Tortoise was sealed here. 700 years ago, Black Tortoise, which had been in deep slumber, was awakened by a summon near the Miao tribe village. A sacred beast which could summon the wind and rain. In this lower plane there was no master to control them. Since it did not differentiate between good and evil, it naturally did as it pleased without any apprehension and stirred up a storm in the Nirvana realm. However, even though it was one of the 4 great divine beasts, it had been in a deep slumber for too long after all. The spiritual energy in the lower realm was not as pure as it used to be. The Black Tortoise consumed too much energy. When he couldn't replenish his spiritual qi. At that time, the holy maiden of the Miaogu clan had used a forbidden art of the Miaogu clan to seal the Black Tortoise under the Miaogu clan. She had left behind an ancestral teaching to suppress the seal for generations to come. And this time, the arrival of Yiqing Luo and the 2 Bu elders coincidentally unlocked the Black Tortoise's seal. Yiqing Luo and the 2 sacred beasts had already signed the contract. Her blood could naturally cause the Black Tortoise to react. That drop of blood from Yiqing Luo had unlocked the first layer of Black Tortoise's seal. Then the 2 elders of the Bu family used their true feelings as a sacrifice to open the second layer of the seal. He successfully awakened the Black Tortoise. And because of that, there was that scene earlier. So to say, you listened to Qiao Jiao's words and threw me down, just to let me contract the Black Tortoise? Yiqing Luo understood the meaning behind Qi's words. Qi valued her just like how she valued Qi. Chapter 2503. I'm not contracting the Black Tortoise either, Qi mumbled softly. The Black Tortoise's temperament is different from ours. It doesn't differentiate between good and evil. Everything depends on its own preferences. Yiqing Luo pinched Qi's ears. In that case, you're not sure if Black Tortoise will accept me, so you threw me down? Qi blinked its intelligent tiger eyes. Qi believes that as long as its master, he will definitely be able to find the Black Tortoise. Saying that, he carefully sized up Yiqing Luo's expression. Seeing that Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change, he hurriedly added another sentence. Master can even contract that bad-tempered little Qi, so it shouldn't be a problem for you to contract Black Tortoise. After the little guy woke up, his ability to act coquettishly and flatter had increased. Yiqing Luo pinched Qi's face and didn't continue to argue with Qi over this point. Instead, she grasped the main point of Qi's words and asked, You said you found the Black Tortoise. Found what do you mean? Qi said that she had succeeded. But Yiqing Luo didn't sense the presence of the Black Tortoise in the pet space. Furthermore, she could not even sense the Black Tortoise's aura. Therefore, she did not contract the Black Tortoise. Only half of the black tortoise's soul is sealed here. Chi-Chi lowered her head and said softly. Half a soul. Yiqing Luo suddenly recalled that when she was in a daze she saw a smear of jade-green fog. Could that be the black tortoise's soul? Chi-Chi seemed to have seen through the doubt in Yiqing Luo's heart as it nodded its big tiger head. Black tortoise has accepted Master, that's why it willingly sent its soul into Master's profound heart jade. It was no wonder that after the green mist entered her heart, she felt that powerful force almost burst her meridians. She was promoted. It was also because he had absorbed the black tortoise's soul. Master can first use the profound heart jade to nurture the black tortoise's soul. When you find the other half of the black tortoise's soul, Master can form a contract with the black tortoise. There was a trace of excitement in Chi-Chi's voice. Yiqing Luo raised her hand and gently pressed on the area where her heart was. He sensed the extremely quiet soul within the profound heart jade. She sighed. I see. Moreover, Black Tortoise was Chi-Chi and Chi-Yan's brother. Seeing how excited Chi-Chi was, it was as if she was about to meet her best friend. Yiqing Luo couldn't bear to reject him. What's more, she had contracted the Black Tortoise, which was beneficial to her. However, Yiqing Luo recalled that Jun Qinggu had once told her about another way to head to the upper realm. Now the three sacred beasts were all in her hands. In other words, even the heavens were helping her make the choice. He helped her choose to collect the sacred beast beads and open the path to the upper realm. Master, the Black Tortoise's soul is already in your profound heart jade. The Miao tribe seal has also been broken. Very soon this place will collapse. Chi-Chi will bring you out of here first. Chi-Chi used her head to nudge Yiqing Luo and reminded her. Yiqing Luo nodded and quickly leaped onto Chi-Chi's back. Rumble. Almost at the same time, a violent earthquake broke out in the surroundings. Countless explosions rang out. Chi-Chi's four limbs moved as it sprinted upwards. Boom. Yiqing Luo felt something collapsing behind her. For some reason she turned around to take a look. Chapter 2504. That stone statue was extremely huge. It was at least one size bigger than Chi-Chi's current form. It looked like a huge tortoise. Its entire body was wrapped in a hard tortoise shell. The most horrifying thing was, on that huge tortoise shell there were two snake-like and dragon-like things. Boom boom. It was another earth-shattering sound. The stone statue broke apart and fell down. Yiqing Luo saw it. That pair of jade-green eyes was especially bright in the jade light. Bam! Yiqing Luo only felt a gust of bone-piercing wind brushing past her face. The body that was sitting on Chi-Chi's back was flung out violently. Qing Luo. A few familiar voices rang in her ears. Immediately she saw a slender figure flying over and catching her steadily. The impact of Yiqing Luo being flung out was rather strong. Both of them retreated more than 10 meters before they managed to stabilize themselves. Yiqing Luo felt a little dizzy as she shook her head and raised her eyes. She met with a cold and beautiful face. Little Wu Wu. Yiqing Luo smiled. Jun Qingwu's face was icy cold as she let go of her hand. Steady yourself. Yiqing Luo felt that this attitude was like a domineering CEO. Her feet were standing on the ground. She could feel the real feeling of standing on the ground. Yiqing Luo finally had a feeling of being revived. After she stabilized herself, she immediately sensed Chi-Chi's direction. Chi-Chi, are you all right? The moment they came out of the Forbidden Grounds, the Forbidden Grounds exploded automatically. This caused a human and a beast to be flung out. Chi-Chi's body was huge and the sacred beast's agility was hundreds of times stronger than a human. After it was flung out, it quickly stabilized itself, just as it was about to catch its master. But it discovered its master was being carried in the arms of a beautiful sister. Chi-Chi blinked its tiger eyes in shock. Master is with the beautiful sister behind the overlord's back. Yiqing Luo. Huh? Jun Qingwu. The surrounding crowd. Huh. Chi-Chi, go back and have a good rest. Yiqing Luo felt that the little fellow's words were too shocking and decisively recalled Chi-Chi back into the pet space. Not long after Chi-Chi woke up, he had also spent too much energy in the forbidden area. He returned to the pet space. Yan Xiaoyi and the others crowded around. Qing Luo, are you all right? The few of them surrounded Yiqing Luo and sized her up. After confirming that there were no wounds on Yiqing Luo's body, he was finally relieved. Outside of the crowd, Gui Wu glanced at Yiqing Luo indifferently. Promoted? Does this mean that you've already gotten the opportunity that Dizun mentioned? Gui Wu's words. Only then did everyone realize. Yiqing Luo's entire temperament had another layer of rebirth. That pair of charming eyes was still clear and enchanting, but there was a trace of unfathomable brilliance in them. Yan Xiaoyi was so shocked that her mouth was agape. My God, Qing Luo, you're simply too abnormal. How long has it been? You've advanced a grade again? One must know that Yiqing Luo was a sky-profound cultivator. The sky-profound realm could be said to be the god realm in everyone's mind. Advancing to the next rank was much more difficult than advancing to the next rank. Yiqing Luo actually advanced again. This group of ordinary people had been devastated to the point that they had nothing left to live for. Yiqing Luo nodded and raised her eyes to look at the indifferent Gui Wu. I have something to ask you. Gui Wu saw through Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Want to ask about the Overlord? Chapter 2505. Yiqing Luo had always known that Gui Wu was absolutely not just a martial arts fanatic from the lower realm, or a grandmaster who guided his students. Dao Xian was mentioned. Even Yan Xiaoyi fell silent. Yiqing Luo saw that the few of them didn't look too good. Her heart sank. Suddenly he recalled the scene of Dao Xian disappearing in the Forbidden Land. Her heart tightened, and when she opened her mouth again, her voice was a bit hoarse. Did something happen to Xian? Otherwise, Xian would not have left her at that time. When Xian was in the Forbidden Land, something was obviously wrong. His entire person was like a gust of wind, disappearing into thin air. Something did happen. Gui Wu did not beat around the bush. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped fiercely as her complexion instantly turned pale and her petite body unconsciously swayed. What nonsense are you talking about? The Overlord's brother-in-law is not in trouble. Kitty Li couldn't bear to see her own sister in such a state as she immediately struggled out of Zhou Mo's restraint, wanting to comfort Yiqing Luo. Zhou Mo tightened his arms, narrowed his phoenix eyes and whispered in her ear, Little wild cat, be good and let me hold you. Don't talk, okay? The rising tone of his voice had a devilish charm to it. Kitty Li's ears were sensitive, so when Zhou Mo's warm breath brushed past her, her delicate body immediately went soft. She blushed and hit his arm. Frivolous man, let go of Kitty Li. Kitty wants to accompany big sister. You said it yourself. Dizun is fine. Won't she be more worried that something has happened to Dizun if you're in such a hurry to accompany her? Zhou Mo raised his eyebrows. Kitty Li was stunned and bit her lower lip. In the end she stopped struggling and looked at Yiqing Luo seriously. Sister, Overlord brother-in-law is really fine, he wouldn't bear to make you unhappy. Yiqing Luo closed her eyes and waved away the image of Dao Xian's disappearance that kept replaying in her mind. Master Gui Wu, the Xian who accompanied me in the forbidden area just now, isn't the real Xian, right? Actually, when Dao Xian disappeared, she already had a trace of conjecture in her heart. However, she deliberately buried all her guesses in the bottom of her heart and pretended not to notice. Yes. Gui Wu's reply was straightforward, concise and comprehensive, as he calmly told her about the matter regarding Dao Xian and his doppelganger. Yiqing Luo quietly listened to Gui Wu's words. The expression on his face was very calm. However, every single word that Gui Wu said, every single sentence, Yiqing Luo's heart felt as though it was pricked by needles. He actually left a trace of his consciousness in her pendant to protect her. From start to finish he had never left her side. Compared to the Nirvana realm, the place he was heading to was the upper realm. It was such a dangerous place. He was still taking such risks. Just to protect her. This man, why did he always do things that made her both angry and touched? Gui Wu had said it before. In the forbidden area, Dao Xian had already exhausted a lot of energy to contend against the seal power set by the Miao tribe's ancestors. Then, in order to protect her, he safely entered the sealed land. Moreover, it consumed a large amount of his own strength. In other words, when Dao Xian disappeared at the end, this was the last trace of his remaining consciousness and strength in her. Ever since they entered the seal, Dao Xian had been using his strength to block the swallowing of the seal's power. He knew that with Qi and Qi Yan around, Black Tortoise's seal power could not hurt him at all. He had exhausted all his strength. Chapter 2506. That silly man just wanted to spend more time with her. The doppelganger was damaged. His body would also be damaged. All of his power was spent on the seal. Would his real body in the upper realm affect the things he handled in the upper realm? The more Yiqing Luo thought, the more her heart trembled. Qing Luo. Yan Xiaoyi saw Yiqing Luo not speaking for a long time, and her pair of eyes had already turned red as she called out softly with heartache. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes as she pushed back the sour feeling in her nose. I'm fine. If I were him, I would also do the same. That was right, if it was her. In order to spend more time with Zhou Xian, she would make the same choice. She understood Zhou Xian's choice. It was just that her heart ached for him. Her heart ached and she missed him. Let's leave this place first. This is the Miao tribe after all. Qiao Jin looked around. Perhaps it was because this was a forbidden place for the Miao tribe. Such a huge commotion had occurred. Not a single Miao tribesman came over. I'm not leaving, Miao Yi said in a choked voice. She clenched her fists tightly, her bloodshot eyes burning with the flames of hatred. I want to kill Miao Yixiong and avenge the people of Bu village. Yiqing Luo thought of those two old men. In order not to drag her down, they resolutely chose to leap into the seal. She took a deep breath and looked at Miao Yi calmly. If you want revenge, you have to live. Miao Yi's body trembled and tensed up. Let's go. After Yiqing Luo finished her words, she didn't wait for the others to react as she walked towards the exit of the Miao tribe. Yan Xiaoyi and the rest followed a few steps forward. He couldn't help but turn his head to look at Miao Yi, who was standing on the spot with her fists tightly clenched. He opened his mouth a few times, wanting to call out to Miao Yi, but looking at Yiqing Luo's departing back view without hesitation. In the end, he didn't say anything and turned around to chase after Yiqing Luo's footsteps. After walking for about the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the sound of hurried footsteps came from behind them. Very quickly, that man chased up to Yiqing Luo and opened up his arms, blocking her path. Big Sister Luo, I beg you, avenge the people of the Bu family village. Miao Yi's bloodshot eyes stared at Yiqing Luo without blinking. Sister Luo was right. If he wanted revenge, he had to stay alive. With her own strength, it was impossible for her to kill the Miao tribe leader. He would only be throwing his life away. She knew, the only person who could help her was Sister Luo. Yiqing Luo stopped in her tracks as her gaze fell firmly onto Miao Yi. Her gaze was like a torch, as if she could see through Miao Yi's soul. Miao Yi felt a little uneasy under his gaze. After a long time, he finally heard Yiqing Luo opening her mouth. Even if you don't mention it, I will take revenge for the Bu family village. Miao Yi's outstretched arms stiffened. Then he slowly lowered his head. No matter what. Thank you. Don't you want to take revenge personally? Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes and looked at the depressed girl. Miao Yi's eyes brightened but soon dimmed again. I want to, but I can't. There's no such thing as whether I can or cannot, only whether I want to or not. Yiqing Luo interrupted Miao Yi's words. As long as you want, I can let you take revenge personally and let the Miao Gu family be consigned to eternal damnation. But I have a request. Hearing Yiqing Luo's words, the light in Miao Yi's eyes grew brighter. She raised her head and her eyes were filled with determination. As long as I can take revenge personally, I will agree to anything you say. Chapter 2507. The group returned to the Peach Blossom restaurant. Seeing so many old friends in the Heavenly Academy, Peach was naturally excited and arranged a good room for everyone. Yiqing Luo also found out from the few of them what happened in the Heavenly Academy after she left. Everything was as she had expected. The headmaster of the Heavenly Profound Academy was removed from his position. Furthermore, he was forcefully sent to the South Wave continent by the headquarters and imprisoned in the headquarters to suffer. Regarding this news, Yiqing Luo wasn't surprised. Before she left, she had specially set up a trap for the Heavenly Dean. What the Heavenly Dean cared about the most was his Dean position. The most severe punishment for Dean Xian wasn't to let him die. Instead, she wanted him to lose everything that he had worked so hard to obtain. She made use of the incident at Xianxia Temple to let Yun Xiang and Si Yen Mu collude to kill the Dean. She appeared to save Dean Xian and used him to leave Yun Xiang first. Before he left, he instructed Yan Xiaoyi to divulge the matter of the Heavenly Dean colluding with the Dark Forces. 1 or 2 elite students would go missing in the Heavenly Academy every month. The reason why the Heavenly Academy would force students to leave school for 3 days every month. The trip to the South Wave continent and the Blazing Nest were all part of the Dean's and the Dark Forces' plan to undo the King of Darkness seal. No matter how secretive the Heavenly Dean was in the past, there would still be some slip-ups. Coupled with some evidence which Yiqing Luo had intentionally forged. Truth and falsehood, the Heavenly Dean would definitely be destroyed. Then, has the headquarters mentioned who the newly appointed Heavenly Profound Principal is? Yiqing Luo asked with a smile after she heard everyone's words. Yan Xiaoyi's face was full of smiles as she blinked her eyes mysteriously. Guess. It's definitely someone you wouldn't expect. Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows and confidently said, It's Master Gui Yu. Yan Xiaoyi's eyes widened as she covered her eyes and fell into Qiao Jin's embrace. Can't you let me play mysterious for once? How did you know it was Dean Gui Yu? Yiqing Luo smiled. Ever since she set up a trap to destroy the Heavenly Dean. She had already predicted that the next president of the Heavenly Academy would be Old Man Gui Yu. Yiqing Luo felt it. Old Man Gui Yu had special feelings towards the Heavenly Academy. If it was Gui Yu, the Heavenly Academy would continue to be at its peak and sit firmly on the honor of being the best academy. Yes, the new dean is Dean Gui Yu. Yan Xiaoyi looked at Yiqing Luo's unfathomable smile as she rubbed her head against Qiao Jin's shoulder with a bored look. The main courtyard has also agreed to let Dean Gui Yu take on the role of Heavenly Dean, and the Dean's certificate has also been handed over to Dean Gui Yu. Qiao Jin stroked her head, his eyes filled with love. Following that, his gaze slowly shifted onto Yiqing Luo. I heard that Dean Gui Yu and the previous dean were best friends. Did you know about this long ago? Otherwise, how could Yiqing Luo be so sure that Old Man Gui Yu would take over the position of the former director? Yiqing Luo nodded. Ever since Teacher Gui Yu came to our devil class as a teacher, I already knew that there was a deep past between Teacher Gui Yu and the previous director. Yes. I heard that when Dean Gui Yu wanted to be a teacher in the devil class, the previous dean refused to let go no matter what. In the end, it was Dean Gui Yu who agreed to do something. Dean Gui Yu almost lost his life, and the previous dean then allowed Dean Gui Yu to be a teacher in the devil class. Chapter 2508. Yiqing Luo was slightly stunned. She knew that Old Man Gui Yu was here to teach devil class. He must have made some sort of deal with the former dean. But he didn't expect, he had almost lost his life. Thinking of Old Man Gui Yu's crazed face, her heart softened. Teacher Gui Yu being the dean is the best outcome. Yiqing Luo's brows curved. After the matters in Northern Tide Continent are settled, we will return to the academy and celebrate with Teacher Gui Yu. Yan Xiaoyi grunted heavily. This time, Slut Jean, Shadow and I came to the Northern Waves continent, firstly to see you and secondly, to represent the Heavenly Academy to attend the birthday banquet of the Qingyue sect lord. Yiqing Luo roughly guessed the reason why they would appear here. Just hearing it from their own mouths. She was still a little surprised. After all, Yan Xiaoyi and the rest were merely students of the Heavenly Academy. In terms of qualifications and status, it was not the turn of the devil class students to be the representatives of the Heavenly Academy. With Old Man Gui Yu's habit of protecting his children, it didn't matter if the devil class students were qualified or not. If Old Man Gui Yu said so, no one would dare to object. Old Man Gui Yu must be worried that she would not be able to lead a stable life in the North Wave continent. He also knew that the students of the devil class all missed him. That was why he had to withstand the pressure from the entire academy to appoint Yan Xiaoyi and the rest as the representatives of the Heavenly Academy. Yan Xiaoyi noticed her gaze and replied, Master Gui Wu and young Master Mo are here to participate in the Qingyue sect master's birthday banquet. Gui Yu was worried that the three of us might encounter danger, so he asked Master Gui Wu and young Master Mo to accompany us. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as her gaze turned into a teasing one. If I remember correctly, as a martial arts fanatic, Ghost martial artist would never participate in any birthday banquets or grand ceremonies. Even if the sect master personally invited him, the ghost martial artist might not give him any face. This time, he traveled thousands of miles from the South Continent to the West Continent, and from the West Continent all the way to the North Continent. She looked at Zhou Mo with a teasing gaze. Gui Wu had definitely followed Zhou Mo here. As for Zhou Mo, clearly they were here for Kitty Li. In order to chase after his wife, Zhou Mo was really going all out. In order to support his brother. The ghost martial artist was quite strenuous. 3 days later, on the birthday of the Qinyu sect master. Since last night, the city had been bustling with noise and excitement. The crackling of the firecrackers never stopped. There were also all kinds of festive bands roaming the streets and alleys. The city was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Melodious music was being played and the atmosphere was joyous. The commoners had filled up the streets and alleys of the Xianxia sect, and they were all talking about the deeds of the Xianxia sect's sect master. Of course, this didn't mean that the Xianxia sect was a living bodhisattva in the eyes of the commoners. But because, today, all the nobles and officials from different continents would gather in the Joy City. They naturally wanted to let the people of the other continents see the respect they had for the Xianxia sect. Every commoner had the heart to protect their own continent. They were all unwilling to let the people of other continents look down on their own continent. As a result, the citizens cheered even more fervently. Of course, there were also people from other continents who came to the Northern Wave continent to attend the birthday banquet. He had also put in a lot of effort to highlight the prosperity of his continent. On the streets, all kinds of luxurious carriages and top-grade horses galloped about. Chapter 2509. Although the street was crowded, people still lined up in an orderly manner. After all, everyone wanted to maintain their elegance and quality so as not to be criticized. Giving way to each other was courteous and respectful. However, such a peaceful appearance, it was broken after the arrival of a group of people. There were about 30 people in that group of people. The guards were dressed in glittering golden clothes, and the weapons in their hands were so sharp that they could blind people's eyes. Surrounded in the middle by the guards was an extremely luxurious and noble carriage. Above the carriage there was a white veil. In the haze there was an enchanting figure. This group of people walked extremely proudly with their heads held high and their chests puffed out, and their steps were powerful. If it was any other time. From the looks of it, this pair of people had a mighty aura that made people envious. But on this occasion, they were all high-ranking officials and dignitaries from various continents. Their attitude was simply a joke. This was especially true for this group of people. They were charging forward without any misgivings at all. They had a posture of, "I am opening this road, everyone get out of the way." Although the distinguished guests from other continents were unhappy, in order to maintain their demeanor, they naturally took the initiative to make way. But this behavior of maintaining demeanor, in the eyes of this group of people, everyone was afraid of their power. The common people already couldn't help but whisper to each other. "What kind of big shot is that? They look very arrogant." "That's right, why are so many distinguished guests making way for them?" Some people guessed the identity of that group of people. Some people sneered disdainfully. "What big shot? I think they don't know what is polite at all." That's right, putting on an air of supremacy, they really think they are big shots. This extravagant and exaggerated posture, no matter how you look at it, it's just pretentious. Soon, someone recognized the flag at the forefront of that group of people. "Look, that's the symbol of the East Continent's royal family." This group of people is the representative of the East Continent's royal family. So it was the royal family. No wonder they were so arrogant. But this was the North Continent. Moreover, many royal family representatives from other continents had also come. He had never seen any other royal family being so rude, had he? Furthermore, the representatives of the East Wave Continent's Jade Dome sect were still obediently lining up and entering the Joy Clan Palace in an orderly manner. What right did the royal family have to be so arrogant? However, today the Xianxia city was bustling with activity. The voices of the commoners were drowned out by the music. Lan Ling Nuo, who was sitting in the carriage with a graceful posture, did not hear the criticism of the commoners outside. Through the white veil, she could see countless high officials and dignitaries making way for her. Some of the commoners were even talking about the East Wave imperial family. Lan Ling Nuo thought that it was because the power of the East Wave continent was overwhelming and everyone was afraid of the Lan family. In his heart he felt more and more pleased. Lan Ling Nuo had grown up in a situation where everyone doted on her. Especially her beautiful face. Her life on the East Wave continent was smooth sailing. Even if he went to the West continent and entered the academy, she was also a fairy who was held in the palm of others' hands and respected. Because of this, Lan Ling Nuo didn't think that these people were being courteous to her because of courtesy, but because they were afraid of her identity as the East Wave's imperial family. Little did she know. Among the many distinguished guests. Chapter 2510. Yiqing Luo and the rest were also heading to Xianxia clan's birthday banquet today. A line of 10 people sat in a spacious carriage. Qiao Jin was chased outside the carriage to drive. They were more low-key, and under the contrast of the other luxurious carriages, their carriage looked very ordinary. Because of that, no other guests in the queue came forward to strike up a conversation. They were happy to be idle. Yiqing Luo lifted the curtains and took a look at the carriages beside the carriage. Truly worthy of being one of the 4 major sects, Qinyu sect. Just a birthday banquet and so many people are attending. I wonder if the Qinyu sect's manor can accommodate so many people. Looking at the sea of people, Lin Fan felt a chill down his spine. Yiqing Luo expressed that Yi Tianquang had really played Three Springs sect to waste. They were obviously one of the 4 major sections. Although Yi Tianquang's birthday banquet was also very lively, but those who came were all small families and couldn't be seen in public. Without comparison, there would be no harm. In future, Feng Yu's birthday banquet will be even more lively than Qinyue clan's. Yan Xiaoyi also stuck her head out to look outside the curtain. I don't wish. Yiqing Luo hurriedly shook her head. Yi Feng Yu's birthday banquet was so extravagant. As the elder sister, wouldn't she be exhausted to death? Yan Xiaoyi burst out laughing. Outside the curtain, the carriages were crowded and it was too dangerous to stick her head out. Qiao Jin pressed Yan Xiaoyi's head and pushed her back into the carriage. In order to prevent Yan Xiaoyi from doing anything dangerous, he started a topic. You're attending Qinyue clan's sovereign's birthday banquet because the person who helped class monitor to suppress the poison is also there? Based on Yiqing Luo's character. This kind of occasion was troublesome. And Yiqing Luo's changed face had become famous on the first day she arrived in the northern continent. If she appeared at the sovereign's birthday banquet, she would probably stir up another storm. Most importantly, for this birthday banquet, the Miaogu family would also be there. Yiqing Luo should take this opportunity to overturn the Miaogu family. They didn't expect Yiqing Luo to follow them to the birthday banquet. They had no choice but to admit that Devil Class's bunch of brothers had interacted with Yiqing Luo for a long time, so they had more or less figured out Yiqing Luo's character. Eldest young Miss Miao has been poisoned by me and needs my antidote. I think today she will take the initiative to beg me. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curved upwards as a crafty cold arc flashed past her eyes. Eldest young Miss Miao is able to suppress the class monitor's venom? Qiao Jin knew that Yiqing Luo definitely had an ulterior motive for attending the birthday banquet. It seemed like the sect leader of the Qinyue sect's birthday banquet was going to be spectacular. Yiqing Luo shrugged her shoulders. I don't know about venomous spells, so I don't know how good eldest Miss Miao's venomous spells are, but... She paused and a meaningful look appeared on her face. Then his gaze fell on Miao Yi, who was sitting in the corner with her head lowered and in a daze. The few of them followed Yiqing Luo's line of sight. Miao Yi was immersed in her own thoughts and did not notice. Xian Gui, who had been sticking close to Miao Yi, raised his head. The skinny young man looked at them with clear eyes. The few of them smiled at Xian Gui and shifted their gazes away, continuing their conversation. Qiao Jin and the others weren't familiar with Miao Yi and Xian Gui. But seeing Yiqing Luo chatting in front of them without any intention to avoid arousing suspicion. So they didn't treat the both of them as outsiders. The few of them were chatting idly. Suddenly the carriage, which was moving at a tortoise speed, shook, as though it had been hit by something fiercely. The few people in the carriage swayed from the impact. Chapter 25:11. Xian Gui immediately hugged Miao Yi's waist as his face flushed red. Second. Are you all right? Miao Yi shook her head as she raised her head in a daze. What's the matter? Did you collide with someone else's carriage? Qiao Jin's icy cold voice was heard from outside the carriage. The troublemakers are here. Looking for trouble? Yiqing Luo's brows rose when she heard that. We're so low profile and there's still someone looking for trouble? Yiqing Luo's voice had just ended. An ear-piercing roar was heard from outside the noisy carriage. How dare you? Do you know who's in the carriage? How dare you block the way? This guard's words were extremely arrogant. Qiao Jin scoffed as his voice was filled with coldness. No matter what your identity is in this Qinyue city, you're just guests attending Qinyue sect's sovereign's birthday banquet. Moreover, you were the one who barged in and knocked into my carriage. I didn't ask you for compensation, but you're biting me instead. Speaking of this, Qiao Jin's tone became even more disdainful. I'm rather curious, what's your identity to have such a big face? How dare you? The leading guard's face flushed red as he raised the long spear in his hand and pointed it at Xiao Jin. Barging in all the way. All the officials and dignitaries automatically gave way to them. The guards' self-confidence started to swell. Especially when they saw such an ordinary carriage, they treated it as some small powerhouse who came over to freeload. What's the matter? Lan Ling Nua's impatient voice was heard from the carriage. Haven't you already submitted the invitation, still not going in? Regent Princess, we met a small powerhouse who not only collided with you, they even blocked the entrance of Qingyue sect, not allowing you to enter. That guard complained at the top of his voice. Lan Ling Nua's beautiful face surfaced a sliver of anger when she heard that. Along the way, everyone was polite to her, East Lan Region Princess. A small powerhouse actually dared to block her way? Lan Ling Nua looked at the bustling guests and commoners through the white veil. Her beautiful eyes suddenly flashed a glint of brilliance. That's right, now was the time when it was bustling with noise and attention. She revealed herself at this moment. Let the people from all the continents see her beauty. She would definitely attract countless men who would go crazy for her. As she thought this, Lan Ling Nua adjusted her state of mind in the carriage. She stood up and lifted the white veil. The luxurious 100 birds paying homage to the phoenix robe accentuated Lan Ling Nua's graceful figure. Her makeup was exquisite and she was extremely beautiful. It was indeed an extremely beautiful face. His appearance had indeed attracted the attention of many distinguished guests and commoners. However, the moment Lan Ling Nua opened her mouth, she destroyed her eyebrows. Where did this small force come from? Don't they understand the principle of first come, first served? It's no wonder that they're just a small force that can't even be shown in public. Lan Ling Nua had a haughty look as she glanced at the extremely ordinary carriage with disdain. His heart also relaxed. The disdain in his eyes deepened. Riding this kind of carriage to attend the Qingyue sect master's birthday banquet? It was obvious that he was a small fry with no power or status. How dare he block the path of the dignified Eastern Wave County Lord? Hover. Chapter 25:12. With that in mind, Lan Ling Nua's lips curled up into a smile. She smiled sweetly and said, I am not a barbaric person. Seeing that you are only a small force and don't know the rules, I will not argue with you. You have offended me. She paused for a moment, then continued with a smile. What about you? All of you get out of the car. Kneel down and kowtow in front of me to apologize. I'll forgive you for your rudeness this time. As Lan Ling Nua spoke, she couldn't help but praise herself for being so kind-hearted. She wanted everyone to think that she, the Princess of East Wave, was not only beautiful but also kind-hearted. She wouldn't hold it against such lowly people. However, she didn't know that her current behavior had already aroused the disgust of most people. Those who had an invitation and could attend the birthday banquet of the Qingyue sect leader were either rich or powerful. They were all people of the upper class. How could a little girl like Lan Ling Nua be able to fool them? Look at Lan Ling Nua, who was pretending to be gentle. She couldn't hide the arrogance and haughtiness in her eyes. It didn't match the fake gentleness she was pretending to be. Especially since Lan Ling Nua had appeared, she had been arrogant, despotic and arrogant. She treated everyone's modesty as a matter of course. He was really annoying. She didn't know why the ruler of the East Wave continent would send such a useless princess to represent the royal family. Wasn't she afraid of losing the face of the East Wave continent's royal family? Xiao Jin frowned. He clearly wasn't in the mood to argue with Lan Ling Nua. A good dog doesn't block the way. Get lost. Lan Ling Nua's arrogant face froze. She was already trying to be kind and forgiving of these lowly forces. This lowly driver actually called her a dog and even shouted at her? Since young, where wasn't she, Lan Ling Nua, pampered at the top of everyone's hearts? Lan Ling Nua was so angry that her face darkened. She couldn't maintain her dignified and gentle expression any longer. How dare you? You're just a driver, how dare you speak to me like this? Call your master out for me. The guards behind her saw that their princess was angry. Immediately, 2 strong guards walked quickly toward the carriage. The people in the carriage, get down from our princess. One of the guards stepped onto the carriage and pulled open the curtains. He was about to reach out and drag the person away. Xiao Jin saw that the guard was using brute force and did not stop him. Instead, he dodged to the side. Lan Ling Nua couldn't help but laugh out loud. A cowardly groom. After being frightened, all his temper was gone. Just a moment ago he even dared to insult her, the Eastern Wave County Lord. After she taught the owner of the carriage a lesson, she would also teach the coachman a lesson. Ah! A blood-curdling scream rang out. A figure flew out from the ordinary carriage. Most of the distinguished guests who were spectating were profound practitioners or had countless experts by their side. The moment his figure flew out, he immediately moved away. The figure landed heavily on the ground. Everyone fixed their eyes on him and saw that he was actually a guard dressed in a dazzling outfit. Lan Ling Nuo was stunned. She didn't expect that the person in the carriage would dare to attack her after knowing her identity. He was so angry that his face turned pale. He immediately ordered the other guards to use brute force to destroy the carriage. It was very crowded. All the distinguished guests were in a hurry to enter the Joy clan residence and take their seats. They weren't in the mood to watch the unreasonable pestering of the Eastern Wave County Lord. Especially now, the Eastern Wave County Lord and the owner of the carriage were blocking the entrance of the Joy clan residence. Lan Ling Nuo didn't have any intention of stopping. Instead, she became more and more aggressive. Chapter 25:13. Don't block the entrance of the Qingyue clan if you have any grudges, okay? If you don't want to go in, then don't hold everyone back. There are still many people waiting in line. As soon as the complaint was voiced, it was immediately echoed by the others. They already knew about the East Wave County Lord's arrogance and disrespect, so they were not interested in knowing more about it. They came all the way to the North Wave continent to build a relationship with the Qingyue clan. They were not interested in watching the little girls show off. There were even some honored guests who were resentful because Lan Ling Nuo had cut the queue and barged through the crowd, and they couldn't help but mock her. Today is the birthday of the sect master of the Qingyue clan. East Wave County Lord. Is this the attitude of the East Wave continent's royal family toward the sect master of the Qingyue clan? Or, the teachings that the East Wave County Lord has received since she was young is that the East Wave continent is the only one in the Nirvana realm. Every word and sentence caused the forces from the East Wave continent to break out in a cold sweat. The representatives of the forces from the East Wave continent wanted to disassociate themselves. However, Lan Ling Nuo frowned her beautiful face and looked at the surrounding guests with an aggrieved expression. It was this lowly force that offended me. It's their fault. Why do you keep blaming me? As she spoke, her eyes turned red. He had a pitiful look on his face. This expression, coupled with her exquisite and beautiful face, was indeed an alluring stunner. It could indeed arouse the protective desire of men. However, Lan Ling Nuo was still trying to use her beauty to absolve herself from the blame at this critical juncture when she had incurred the wrath of the public. That would be a big mistake. Even if some forces were attracted by Lan Ling Nuo's beauty, think about her arrogant personality. Look at her pitiful appearance now. No matter how you looked at it, it felt very awkward. Especially since Lan Ling Nuo's actions had offended a large number of noble ladies. These noble ladies had grown up in the backyard since young. She kept saying one thing after another. Every word she said made Lan Ling Nuo so ashamed that she could not refute. In an instant, Lan Ling Nuo's face turned red from the criticism of those noble ladies and ladies, as well as the guests who were already extremely impatient. Lan Ling Nuo had never suffered such humiliation. Just as Lan Ling Nuo was about to explode in anger, a small figure, under the protection of a group of well-trained guards, walked over quickly. Sister Nuo, what happened? When Lan Ling Nuo saw her, it was as if she had grabbed onto a life-saving straw. Lingling, you must seek justice for me. Someone dares to be so arrogant in your Northern Tide Continent's territory. They simply don't respect your Northern Tide Continent. Lan Ling Nuo's face turned red, and she was so angry that her eyes turned red. When Xia Lingling saw this, she felt that Lan Ling Nuo was so angry that she was crying. He recalled the scene of Lan Ling Nuo saving him at the Peach Blossom restaurant. Xia Lingling immediately held Lan Ling Nuo's hand tightly. This time it was her turn to protect elder sister Nuo. She raised her head, and her small face was filled with displeasure as she glared at those people. You are all reputable people from various continents. Don't you feel embarrassed bullying a little girl like this? Everyone had been waiting at the entrance of Qingyue clan residence for a long time. They were blocked at the entrance and they could only watch as Lan Ling Nuo threw a tantrum. They had long suppressed their displeasure in their hearts. Chapter 25:14. First, It was the princess of the East Billow region who was arrogant and rude in front of them. Seeing that she was just a little girl, he maintained the attitude that it wasn't appropriate for her to cause trouble on the birthday of the Xianxia sect master. They graciously endured it. Now Princess Balon was criticizing them? Although they were on their own continent, their status and power were indeed incomparable to the royal family. But that didn't mean that he was going to the Northern Wave continent to attend the birthday banquet. He was even bullied by the royal family of the Northern Wave continent. If this news were to spread back to his own continent, wouldn't they become the laughingstock of the Northern Wave continent? There were even people from other continents making guesses. Were the East and North continents planning to join forces and invade the other two continents? As soon as these words were spoken, it instantly caused all the distinguished guests and the surrounding commoners to panic. This was related to the peace of the Nirvana realm. The distinguished guests from the various continents immediately began to question. The representatives of the forces of the two continents in the north and east hurriedly explained. This meant that they had absolutely no intention of destroying the peace of the Nirvana realm. Lan Ling Nuo realized the seriousness of the matter under everyone's pushing and shouting. Her heart trembled violently, and her little hand tightly grasped Xia Lingling's wrist. If this group of people really believed that she and Xia Lingling, as the representatives of the royal families of the two continents, had joined forces to destroy the peace of the Nirvana realm, she would be killed by these people. Furthermore, even if these people let her go back to the East Wave continent, no matter how much Uncle June spoiled her, she had caused such a huge commotion. Uncle Monarch would not let her off easily either. Lan Ling Nuo knew how to make use of her beauty. In the East and West continents she was doing very well. Naturally she was not a fool. She immediately grabbed Xia Lingling's hand and said with a sobbing tone, "Lingling, you've misunderstood. It's not the lords. It's the person in the carriage." As she spoke she put on a humiliated expression. It was clearly my East Billow tribe's invitation that was sent first, but the coachman of this carriage actually drove his horse and directly bumped into me, insisting on entering the manor before me. I couldn't take it anymore, so I argued with the coachman, but I didn't expect. Lan Ling Nuo wanted to push all the blame for this farce onto the small faction in the horse carriage. In any case, it was just a lowly small force. To die for her, Princess Donglan. That would be their honor. However, he could not personally teach these lowly and rude people a lesson. Xia Lingling was startled. She immediately turned her head to look at the low-profile carriage. She frowned and lifted her foot to kick the carriage. The people inside, get out. Once again she called out to Lan Ling Nuo's guards and her own guards. Push the carriage to the side for me. Don't delay everyone from attending Uncle Sect Leader's birthday. The two girls directly ignored the surrounding guests who were pointing at them and gossiping about them. All of them turned their attention to the carriage. One of them burst into tears. One of them kicked the carriage in a rude and unreasonable manner. They were all people of status and they weren't young either. At this time it was not good to continue to harass the two little girls. In the carriage, Yiqing Luo's long and narrow eyes revealed a trace of teasing smile. Although Xia Lingling was only 12 or 13 years old, she was very quick-witted. He specifically asked the guards to push their carriage aside and make way for them. The distinguished guest had been delayed for a long time, and their hearts were already burning with anxiety. Chapter 25:15. Adding on to that, Xia Lingling's greeting of Uncle Sovereign had successfully intimidated them. They were here to offer their blessings to the sovereign of Xianxia sect. For Xia Lingling to address the sovereign of Xianxia sect as uncle, it was obvious that the relationship between the royal family and the sovereign of Xianxia sect was rather close. So it was even more impossible for them to haggle over anything. How could Yiqing Luo allow this show to end so easily? If she didn't teach them a lesson, they didn't know how to learn from their mistakes. This could be considered as her teaching them a lesson. Bam. Bam bam bam. Just as the two groups of guards swarmed towards the carriage trying to push the carriage away, an extremely powerful profound energy suddenly exploded from within the carriage. That force sent the guards who were caught off guard flying. One by one they fell onto the ground crying out in pain. "You! How dare you lay your hands on the royal guards?" Xia Lingling couldn't believe her eyes as she watched her guard fall to the ground and wail in pain. Lan Ling Nuo, who was standing by the side, sobbed softly, Earlier I asked the guards to ask the owner of the carriage to alight but was thrown out by the person in the carriage. It's just a small powerhouse but they totally disregarded us. Her tone sounded as though she had suffered a huge grievance. She was obviously complaining. But she was reminding Xiao Lingling. The person in the carriage was just someone from a small powerhouse. And he was extremely arrogant. When Xiao Lingling heard that, she was so infuriated that her face turned red. She had always relied on her status as a little princess and was used to doing evil. The words she couldn't bear to hear was others disregarding her. This princess wants to see how powerful a small powerhouse's representative is. Xiao Lingling walked directly to the side of the carriage and lifted her leg to step on the curtain. Qiao Jin, who was by the side, had long sat at the side with a, "You guys can fight however you want. I'm just here to watch the show, look." Xiao Lingling shot a disdainful glance at Qiao Jin. She raised her hand and was about to lift the curtain. Her hand hadn't even been lifted. That floating curtain was pinched by a hand. That hand was as fair as jade and the fingers were long and slender like a fine jade. Even Xiao Lingling, who had never done any manual labor and had meticulously taken care of her body every day, couldn't help but feel inferior when she saw her fair fingers. Then the curtain of the carriage was lifted. A rather delicate face entered Xiao Lingling's sight. When Xiao Lingling's gaze was fixed on that face, she suddenly felt a chill run down her spine. She suddenly screamed, "Ah!" Then, as if he had received a huge shock, he took a few steps back. He retreated. Xiao Lingling's footsteps missed. His body fell backwards. Boom. Xiao Lingling fell to the ground with a heavy thud. Her entire body was throbbing in pain from the fall. Even the slightest movement would cause his bones or tendons to be pulled, and he would feel a tearing pain. Young princess. The guards who had fallen to the ground were so frightened that they didn't have the mind to care about their injuries. One by one they rushed forward and shouted anxiously, "Little commandery princess, are you all right?" "Young princess." Ugh. Xiao Lingling was in so much pain from the fall that tears streamed down her face. With the help of the guards she stood up, grimacing in pain and gasping. It's you." Xiao Lingling stared at the carriage in disbelief. She was so angry that her body was trembling and her voice was trembling. "Bitch! It's you again. It's you again." The slender figure in red walked out of the carriage. Even if she turned into ashes. Chapter 25:16. Yiqing Luo half squatted on the carriage as she placed one hand on her knee. She tilted her head and looked at the disheveled Xiao Lingling with a smile which didn't look like a smile as she burst out laughing. "Yo, isn't this little Princess Beilon Wei? After failing to flaunt your prowess at the Peach Blossom restaurant, you're now running over to the entrance of Qingyue sect to play your little princess tricks?" Xiao Lingling's eyes were brimming with tears as her eyes shot out a ruthless glint. Her little face was twisted into a ball. "You slut. You've been disrespectful to me time and time again. Do you believe that I won't ask Uncle Monarch to chop off your head?" Xiao Lingling's sharp voice screamed sharply. Yiqing Luo. She recalled the humiliation she had suffered in Yiqing Luo's hands previously. Her eyes were filled with fury. "Guards. Capture this lowly commoner for me." The guards looked at each other in dismay. They weren't stupid. Earlier in the carriage, the force which had sent them flying. It was absolutely not a force which they could contend against. Xiao Lingling was after all still young and was in a fit of anger, so how could she think of anything else? Her mind was filled with the thought of teaching Yiqing Luo a lesson. Seeing that the guards were rooted to the ground, Xiao Lingling was so angry that she bared her teeth. "I can't even order you around anymore, is it? Alright, you bunch of trash, wait till I return. I will ask Uncle Monarch to confiscate your family." When the honored guests heard Xiao Lingling's arrogant words, their hearts involuntarily began to beat like drums. This Princess Beilon was extremely arrogant in her words. And from time to time she would bring out her Uncle Monarch. Apparently this was the reason why Monarch Beilon gave her such arrogant confidence. Everyone's gaze unconsciously shifted to the front where the signboard of the Delight clan residence was decorated with lanterns and colored banners. It was an extremely festive sight. A royal princess dared to create such a ruckus at the entrance of Qingyue sect and even asked the monarch to stand up for her. That meant that she didn't put Qingyue sect in her eyes at all. From the bottom of her heart she felt that even if it was Qingyue sect, they had to submit to the royal family. Little Princess Beilon was only 12 or 13 years old. For her to have such arrogant behavior and remarks, It was obvious that someone had instilled a deep-rooted idea in her. This person. Who else could it be other than Sovereign Beilong? In other words, was Monarch Beilong trying to suppress the Qingyue clan? This thought flashed across the minds of all the distinguished guests. They looked in the direction of the Joy clan residence with a meaningful and probing gaze. However, Xia Lingling, who was in a fit of anger, did not notice that her actions had already aroused many speculations. Bitch. Don't think that you can bully people just because you have a high profound rank. This is the Northern Wave continent, outside of Uncle Sect Master's residence. If you dare to cause trouble, Uncle Sect Master will never let you off. Xia Lingling's voice became softer and softer under Yiqing Luo's pair of smiling yet not smiling eyes, as her arrogance became lower and lower. At the end of her sentence, she felt her heart fill with fear as though it was going to jump out of her throat. Her face was deathly pale and her heart was filled with hatred. She did not want to be afraid of this slut. But unfortunately, the more she looked at this slut, the stranger she felt. Her lips trembled as she immediately sought help from Lanling Nuo. Sister Nuo, look at this slut, she. Lanling Nuo had already squeezed into the crowd. Earlier, when the distinguished guests guessed that East Wave Continent and North Wave Continent were going to form an alliance, it gave her a reminder. Chapter 25:17. Although she despised these people who ran over to the North Continent, hoping to get in touch with the sovereign of Qinyu sect. But after all, these were all influential people from various continents. She wasn't afraid of these people. But she didn't want the East Continent to become enemies with these people. Because of this, Xia Lingling, that idiot, stood out herself, standing at the heart of the struggle. Lanling Nuo decisively chose to let Xia Lingling take the blame alone. But unexpectedly, Xia Lingling actually dragged her out again. Lanling Nuo's expression was steely green, but when Xia Lingling looked at her, her expression had already adjusted, with a timid look in red eyes. But in her heart she was cursing Xia Lingling over and over again. Lingling. Lanling Nuo had no choice but to walk up. Her mind was spinning quickly. Everyone in the world sympathized with the weak. No matter what, she had to act pitiful now, using her beauty to attract all the VIPs to stand on her side. Hence, Lanling Nuo pretentiously pressed the corner of her eyes as she was about to cry. She's not a lady to be trifled with. Lingling, let's go. Saying that, Lanling Nuo pulled Xia Lingling's arm and was about to leave. He vividly portrayed the look of helplessness and humiliation on his face. Look how pitiful she was. Bullied by a shrew, all the grievances could only be swallowed into her stomach. Lanling Nuo's pretentiousness, whether the VIPs took the bait or not, she didn't know. But Xia Lingling was definitely stabbed, not to be trifled with. In my North Continent's territory, there's someone whom I can't trifled with? Lanling Nuo immediately continued. She dared to poison the Battle King's young lord, and even in the Peach Blossom restaurant, relying on the power of the Peach Blossom 3000 mercenary group, totally disregarding the East Continent and North Continent. She must have a distinguished status. We'd better forget about it. It was obviously words of persuasion. But every single word was to agitate Xia Lingling. The two princesses of the two continents, although they didn't interact often. But Lanling Nuo more or less understood Xia Lingling's character. Just a few words easily aroused Xia Lingling's competitive spirit. And when the VIPs heard Lanling Nuo's words, their gazes shifted onto Yiqing Luo. Poison the young prince of the War King's mansion? How could this woman be so bold? There were also quite a number of people who had stayed in the city for a period of time. Naturally, they knew about the Battle King's mansion's search for a red-clothed girl. There were some who recognized Yiqing Luo. He immediately talked about the search in the warlord's mansion. Everyone's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was filled with probing. He seemed to be guessing what identity this seemingly ordinary young girl had to actually dare to touch the young prince of the warlord's mansion. Distinguished status? Xia Lingling's sharp voice rang out. A lowly commoner dares to say that he has an honorable status? Yiqing Luo, whose nose was pointed at, leisurely curled her pink lips as she tilted her head slightly, smiling at Xia Lingling. Lowly commoner? In the eyes of the young princess, we, the common people, are lowly peasants? Xia Lingling only heard the words, we are ordinary people. Immediately he was even more certain that Yiqing Luo was just a little thing without any influence. Without thinking he sneered angrily, "Of course. No power or influence, aren't they lowly peasants? You have to bow and scrape when you see me, aren't you lowly peasants?" Yiqing Luo's smile grew wider. Chapter 25:18. Xiao Lingling was so infuriated that her mind was muddled. Lan Ling Nua wasn't. She and Xiao Lingling were on the same boat now. She walked up quickly and grabbed Xiao Lingling's wrist, speaking in a low voice, "Ling Ling. Forget it, you're not her match." Not only were the VIPs from various continents around them, there were also the commoners of North Tide Continent. Xiao Lingling belittled the commoners in front of them and kept on calling them lowly commoners. Wasn't she trying to incite the anger of the commoners? The both of them represented the royal families of both continents. Unlike that slut who had no fear. The current situation. It was extremely disadvantageous to them. Anyway. The third day of the birthday banquet. They had plenty of chances to teach that slut a lesson. Lan Ling Nua took a look at the VIP's gazes, which all fell onto them. She adjusted her expression and gently patted Xiao Lingling's hand. All right, Ling Ling, don't be calculative with those small powerhouses. They're all people who don't know the rules, don't get yourself into a mess." Xiao Lingling pursed her lips tightly, her face was filled with anger as she stared furiously at Yiqing Luo. But she put on a look as though she had listened to Lan Ling Nua's persuasion. Just at this moment, a hurried voice was heard from the Qingyue sect's manor. "Today is Qingyue sect's sovereign's birthday banquet. No matter what enmity we have, please treat each other respectfully on account of sovereign's face." Following that, a plump man dressed in a black brocade robe walked out in quick steps. The middle-aged man wiped the sweat off his forehead and saw the two young ladies blocking the entrance as he hurriedly put on a smile. "Isn't this the East Wave Region Lord and Little Region Lord? You must have waited for a long time, please come in." The middle-aged man smiled like a Maitreya Buddha. Apparently, Qingyue sect had heard about what happened outside the manor. They specially sent someone over to mediate. Looking at the middle-aged man's dressing, he should be at least a steward of Qingyue sect. As expected, Xiao Lingling pouted and complained, "Stewardine, I arrived a long time ago. If I hadn't bumped into this lowly commoner, I would have come to congratulate Uncle Sect Leader on his birthday." "Oh, little ancestor, don't get angry and harm your body. Everyone here is a guest." Butler Yin smiled as he conveyed Xiao Lingling's message. He then said, "The sect leader was still thinking about the two princesses just now. I'll bring the two princesses to see the sect leader." Anyone with a discerning eye could tell. Housekeeper Yin's words were just polite words to resolve the matter. However, Xiao Lingling couldn't tell. After all, he was still young and some of his tricks were learned in the palace. But when it came to the human heart and irony, her attainments were still too shallow. On the contrary, she felt that Housekeeper Yin had treated her with such importance, and every word he had said was to please her. It was enough to prove how favored she was in the Northern Wave continent. Even Uncle Sect Master on his birthday was still thinking about her. Xiao Lingling gleefully threw a provocative look towards Yiqing Luo's direction. At this moment Lan Ling Nua was also extremely pleased. He was even more certain that the East Wave continent was now so powerful that the other continents had to take a detour around it. It seemed that it wouldn't take long. The East Wave continent would be able to rule the entire Nirvana realm. After that, she would become the one and only region lord in the Nirvana realm. She proudly raised her pretty little face and put on a noble look as she looked at Housekeeper Yin. "Then lead the way." Housekeeper Yin's expression changed slightly. After all, he was used to playing Tai Chi, so he didn't want to haggle with the young lady. Chapter 25:19. Under everyone's gaze, Xiao Lingling and Lan Ling Nua proudly walked through the entrance of the Joy Clan Manor. The steward of the Qingyue faction personally welcomed them. Even the representatives of the sects from the other continents would not receive such an honor. This time they had gained a lot of face. The two of them were secretly delighted. But they didn't know that the guests' impression of the two of them was already terrible to the extreme. There were also some large forces that were suspicious of the royal families of the eastern and northern continents. The two princesses were no longer waiting at the door, and the other guests could finally enter the Joy Clan Manor. Yiqing Luo saw that the farce had ended and didn't intend to investigate further. Instead he returned to the carriage. Qiao Jin handed over their invitations. When the gatekeeper saw the invitation that Xiao Jin handed over, the expression on his face suddenly changed. His eyes were filled with shock, and then he looked at the ordinary carriage with a trace of respect. Xiao Jin frowned slightly and looked coldly at the gatekeeper. Only then did the gatekeeper react and hurriedly stood up. Please come in, please come in. The carriage slowly entered the Joy Clan manor. The guests waiting around were all shrewd people. Naturally, he had seen the gatekeeper's reaction just now. Someone asked curiously, "Who is the person in the carriage?" The gatekeeper must have seen the name on the invitation, which was why he showed such a terrified expression. The gatekeeper's expression changed. He said solemnly, "Everyone, please don't ask too much. That man likes silence." After the carriage entered the Joyful Heart sect, a manservant came forward to stop the carriage for them. Yiqing Luo had just alighted from the carriage when she heard Lan Ling Nua's sweet laughter. Yiqing Luo looked over. Indeed, not far ahead, Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling were surrounded by a group of young ladies. It was unknown what they were talking about, but they would occasionally laugh. Butler Yin stood at the side respectfully. But Yiqing Luo could tell. There was displeasure in Butler Yin's eyes. Yiqing Luo glanced lightly at the two who were still teasing the other young ladies, squinted her charming eyes and sneered coldly. Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling didn't look like fools. Why couldn't he think straight at such a crucial moment? After all, this was the Qinyu sect. It was the birthday of the sect master of the Qinyu sect. He had the busy butler run to the door to welcome the two of them. He wanted to mediate between the two of them and avoid unnecessary disputes. On the other hand, Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nua wanted to show off their status in the eyes of the sect master of the Qinyu sect. Regardless of whether what Steward Yin had said about the sect leader thinking about the two princesses was true or not. These words came out. They were two juniors who had come to offer their blessings. No matter what, the sect master should be the most important. No matter what it was, he would have to wait until he met the sect master first. However, the two of them deliberately walked very slowly, and along the way they even greeted people with all sorts of haughty noises. What's more, they gathered together with the rich young ladies and flaunted their nobility. He really didn't know whether to laugh at their stupidity or not. Or were the two of them so thoroughly brainwashed by their uncle monarch that their brains were damaged? Did he really think that the identity of the royal family was unique and honorable in the world? What are you laughing at? Yan Shaoyi came down from the carriage and asked casually. Yiqing Luo shot a glance towards Lan Ling Nua's direction. Yan Shaoyi looked over and her beautiful eyes widened. Tisk, these two people's brains must have been kicked by a donkey? The truth had proven that Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling's brains had indeed been kicked by a donkey. The two of them looked over at the same time. The people over there naturally sensed something. Chapter 25-20. Lowly commoner, how did you manage to sneak in? Xia Lingling frowned and glanced at Xiao Jin with a face full of disdain. Do you know what this place is? A coachman dares to stand in the Qinyu sect? This is Uncle Patriarch's birthday celebration. Not any Tom, Dick or Harry can just come in. The other 5 to 6 young misses saw Xia Lingling's attitude and asked curiously, "Who is that? Which family's Missy is she from?" Missy? Xia Lingling snorted coldly and sneered, "Just a small powerhouse's waste, dragging her entire family to Qinyu sect, trying to build a relationship with Uncle Patriarch. Why don't you take a look at your own status first?" Yiqing Luo didn't want to bother with these two silly women. She pulled Yan Shaoyi and followed behind the carriage. But in Xia Lingling's eyes, Yiqing Luo had silently acknowledged her lowly status. Feeling ashamed and embarrassed, he wanted to escape at the last minute. Since you're so thick-skinned to get an invitation, why are you afraid of others talking about it? Xia Lingling naturally wouldn't let go of this chance to humiliate Yiqing Luo and the rest. She pulled Lan Ling Nua and walked towards Yiqing Luo's direction with the other young misses. Today was the birthday celebration and Qinyu sect was a place of freedom. The guests came and went as they chatted and socialized. Yiqing Luo and the rest were not far from the entrance of the Qinyu sect. Just a little noise and it attracted a lot of attention. With Uncle Patriarch's support, Xia Lingling naturally wasn't afraid of the gazes from the surrounding people. Earlier at the entrance, they blocked the entrance and delayed the other guests' time, which was why they were blamed by the other guests. Now she wanted to take revenge. She wanted to make that slut cry in shame and leave this place. Xia Lingling raised her voice and pointed at Yiqing Luo. "Which continent are you from?" Making this kind of carriage and trying to build a relationship with Qinghua sect. A bunch of useless waste, you're a disgrace to your continent. In order to build a good relationship with the two continents' princess, the young misses naturally stood on their side. Especially when they saw the extremely ordinary carriage behind Yiqing Luo. Their hearts were filled with contempt towards Yiqing Luo and the rest. Trash from a small faction, don't embarrass yourself here. That's right. Do you really think that you can befriend the sect master just because you attended the sect master's birthday banquet? With your status, it's already a luxury to be able to see the sect master. The way I see it, these two girls are shameless enough to come to the joyful Qin sect's birthday banquet. They're probably trying to hook up with some noble young master and become his bed warmer. Look at how they're dressed. They're obviously vixens who are here to seduce men. The words of the young ladies successfully pleased Lan Ling Nuo and Xia Lingling. Yiqing Luo and Yan Xiaoyi exchanged glances, expressing their innocence. Flowery. If what they were doing was considered fancy, then wouldn't this group of young ladies be so pretty that I can't look at them anymore? Each and every one of them shone with golden light, wishing that they could wear gold and silver to fill themselves up. And he still had the cheek to say that the two of them were fancy pants? His ability to lie through his teeth was also unparalleled. With their unpresentable looks? Just based on their petty-minded appearances? Who else are they trying to seduce? If we're talking about the prettiest today, it would be Princess Donglan and young Princess Beilan. As they spoke, the young ladies started to flatter the two princesses again. This flattery. Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nuo expressed their satisfaction. Looking at Yiqing Luo and the rest, they couldn't say a word after being criticized by the young ladies. Chapter 25-21. Lan Ling Nuo put on a high and mighty look as she held Xia Lingling's arm and walked over arrogantly. She sneered scornfully, "As a person, you need to know your own limits, don't dream about things that you can't get." Saying that, she looked at Housekeeper Yin. "Housekeeper Yin, these people have bad intentions and their status is lowly. To let them attend the sovereign's birthday banquet, it's a disgrace to Qinyu sect's reputation, it's better to chase them out." Housekeeper Yin's face had already turned steely green. He hadn't had the chance to speak. Lan Ling Nuo had already walked in front of Yiqing Luo as her red lips curled up complacently, but she put on a gentle and generous look. "Miss Yi, it's not that I'm not willing to let you attend the sovereign's birthday banquet, but your status is simply too lowly, and it's a disgrace to Qinyu sect's prestige. In order to protect your continent's reputation and to protect your remaining dignity, leave Qinyu sect." His words were full of emotion and voice. As though the starting point of this decision was really for Yiqing Luo's own good. The young ladies behind her nodded one after another as their faces were filled with disdain and ridicule. Yiqing Luo let them speak as she smiled. The expression on her face was as calm as still water. Her quiet and seductive eyes stared straight at Lan Ling Nuo. Lan Ling Nuo's smile froze at the corner of her mouth. Lan Ling Nuo's body stiffened as her voice trembled. What are you looking at? Don't tell me what I said is wrong." "Of course Sister Nuo is right." Xia Lingling raised her head as she said proudly, "Sister Nuo's suggestion is to help you retain your reputation, don't be ungrateful." Yiqing Luo tilted her head as she gave a low laugh. Her pair of charming eyes, because of her raised arc, added some enchantment. Lan Ling Nuo was jolted back a few steps. Yiqing Luo smiled slightly. "Are you done?" Her voice was cold, without any extra emotions. Lan Ling Nuo's nervous heart tightened. Yuji wasn't around if this slut really made a move on her. She would definitely be at a disadvantage. No matter what, she must make them scram out of Qinyu sect. Lan Ling Nuo retreated a few steps and shrunk closer to Steward Yin. "Steward Yin, take a look. Such a barbaric woman. If she really attends the sect leader's birthday banquet and offends the sect leader, what should we do?" Steward Yin dodged Lan Ling Nuo's outstretched hand without a trace. He was neither servile nor overbearing, but his expression was gloomy. "East Wave Region Lord, everyone who comes is a guest. The Qinyu sect will not look down on anyone because of their identity." Lan Ling Nuo's expression stiffened. "Steward Yin." Xia Lingling instantly pulled a long face when she heard this. "Are you saying that I look down on them?" Butler Yin bowed slightly but didn't say anything. In other words, it was a tacit agreement. Xia Lingling's expression became extremely ugly. "So what if I look down on them? What right does a lowly piece of trash have to sit in the same place and breathe the same air as me? I find it disgusting. Lan Ling Nua also said gently, Housekeeper Yin, don't hurt our friendship because of these lowly people. We are doing this in consideration for the Qingyue sect. If these people really attend the sect leader's birthday banquet, it will really affect the mood of the guests. Lan Ling Nua's tone became heavier as she spoke. She was threatening Housekeeper Yin. They were the two most pampered young region lords in the two continents. Even the Qingyue sect had to give them face and treat them as VIPs. No matter what, they wouldn't offend the two region lords just because of these sluts, right? Housekeeper Yin had yet to reply. Chapter 25-22. Among the crowd, there was a 25 to 26-year-old young man dressed in a green robe. His every action was noble and elegant. When he appeared, the hubbub around them gradually quietened down. The young man walked slowly towards the direction of Yiqing Luo and the rest. The corners of his calm and handsome face curled up into a smile, but his brows were slightly furrowed. Young sect master. Housekeeper Yin greeted respectfully when he saw the person approaching. The surrounding people, those with lower status, also bowed. Those with higher status cupped their hands in greeting. The young man was the young sect master of Qinyu sect, Yin Yanxiu. Brother Xiu. Xia Lingling's eyes lit up when she saw Yin Yanxiu and she immediately went up to him coquettishly. Brother Xiu, are you here to fetch Lingling? Before Yin Yanxiu could say a word, Xia Lingling had already continued on her own. Brother Xiu, if you don't come, Lingling will be bullied to death. That lowly commoner doesn't even put me, the princess, in her eyes. She doesn't even put the Qingyue clan in her eyes. Xia Lingling's eyeballs turned extremely quickly as her eyes were filled with craftiness. Before she could get close to Yin Yanxiu had already avoided Xia Lingling's touch. He lowered his eyes slightly as his gaze swept past Xia Lingling calmly. Following that, he raised his eyes and fixed his gaze on the calm and composed Yiqing Luo. Xia Lingling didn't mind Yin Yanxiu's actions. She and Yin Yanxiu really didn't have much interaction. After all, Yin Yanxiu was a 25-year-old young man. And Xia Lingling was just a 13-year-old young lady. How would they have any interaction usually? But Xia Lingling intentionally put on this attitude, just to convey to everyone that her relationship with the royal family and Qinyu sect was good. Moreover, she took the initiative to please Yin Yanxiu, and on account of the royal family's face, Yin Yanxiu would not reject her. She had already explained everything clearly to Yin Yanxiu. Yin Yanxiu was an intelligent man, so he would definitely understand her meaning. Thinking of this, Xia Lingling's pampered little face was filled with a complacent expression. The moment Lan Ling Nua saw Yin Yanxiu, her heart started to palpitate. Although her ultimate target was South Continent's young sect master, Gu Jingyu. But Yin Yanxiu was Qinyu sect's young sect master. If she could make Yin Yanxiu a subject under her skirt, it would not work on Gu Jingyu's side. At the very least, she could become the wife of the Northern Wave Continent's sect master. Furthermore, Lan Ling Nua could tell. Yin Yanxiu didn't really like Xia Lingling. Xia Lingling was so immersed in her own happiness that she didn't notice. She had seen it clearly. Yin Yanxiu's frown deepened. So, Yin Yanxiu didn't come here and speak up for them because of Xia Lingling. It was because of her identity as the East Wave County Lord that she had rushed over. She was the incomparably noble Eastern Lan County Lord. Everyone had to give face to Dong Lan. Yin Yanxiu definitely wanted to establish a good relationship with the royal family of the East Billow region. Lan Ling Nua had always been confident about her looks. She was also certain that she could use her looks to make Yin Yanxiu fall in love with her. Hence, she adjusted her most gentle and magnanimous smile and gracefully walked to Xia Lingling's side, hooking her arm. Lingling, don't be angry. Young sect master Yin is here to stand up for you. Don't get angry over those Tom, Dick and Harry. Immediately, she looked at Yin Yanxiu with tender affection. However, she realized that Yin Yanxiu didn't even look at her. Chapter 25-23. Lan Ling Nua's expression froze. She clenched her fists tightly and put on a gentle smile as she slowly walked towards Yiqing Luo. Yin Yanxiu's gaze fell on Yiqing Luo. She then walked into Yin Yanxiu's line of sight. Lan Ling Nua walked in an enchanting manner. She was extremely charming. Very quickly, she stopped in front of Yiqing Luo and gave her a contemptuous glance. See that, this is the young matriarch of Qingyue sect. Just based on your lowly status, to be able to meet the young matriarch of Qinghua sect. It's all because of me. Saying that, she changed into a smiling look as she looked at Yin Yanxiu. Young matriarch, don't bother with these lowly people, it's a disgrace to your Qinghua sect's status. Lan Ling Nua's tone was filled with complacency, not knowing what she was proud of. Hearing Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nua echoing each other's words, Yiqing couldn't hold it in any longer as he laughed out loud. Had these two ladies' brains been kicked by a donkey? Were they too arrogant towards their own status? Or were they brain-damaged and blind, totally unable to read Yin Yanxiu's expression? Lan Ling Nua frowned slightly. Why did Yi Luo's laughter seem to contain a hint of ridicule? To be able to meet the young matriarch of Qinghua sect. This was already the fortune she had cultivated in her past life. She actually put on a scornful expression. Ever since the incident at the Peach Blossom restaurant, Lan Ling Nua had specially inquired about this red-robed young lady's news. Yi Luo and the lady she hated, not only were they dressed the same, even their names were different by one word. But Yi Luo's identity was just an ordinary academy student, who had obtained the academy's permission to travel to the North Continent. An ordinary student, sitting in such an ordinary horse carriage. Other than a horse groom, he didn't even have a follower. No matter how she looked at it, Yi Luo was just a powerless and nameless nobody. Compared to a pampered princess like her, it was like heaven and earth. Lan Ling Nua totally didn't put Yi Luo in her eyes. Brother Xiao, didn't housekeeper Yin mentioned earlier that Uncle Sect Master is concerned about me and Sister Nua? Come on, let's go to Uncle Sect Leader's place. Just leave these lowly commoners to the servants to handle. Xia Lingling saw that Yin Yanxiu didn't say anything and was getting a little impatient. I can't stand staying in the same place with this kind of person for so long. That's true. The clear male voice was extremely deep. Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling were stunned. Soon after, his face lit up with joy. Brother Xiao, young sect master. You think so too, right? Yin Yanxiu, who had been silent all this while, faintly flashed a cold light in his eyes. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes. This person, he was a ruthless person. He was definitely not as noble and refined as he appeared on the surface. However, from the looks of it, this person could not be considered an enemy. He was also a smart man. Lan Ling Nua and Xia Lingling couldn't wait to see the scene of Yi Luo and the others being chased out by the young sect master of the Qinghua sect. Who asked that slut to be arrogant and despotic? How dare that slut embarrass them in public? Now let's see who's the one who's embarrassed. Immediately, the two princesses looked at Housekeeper Yin. Housekeeper Yin, did you hear that? Your young sect master has already spoken. Why aren't you taking action? Housekeeper Yin didn't reply, only looking at Yin Yanxiu. On seeing Yin Yanxiu nodding his head slightly, he then got someone to bring over 10 patrolling guards. Looking at those 10 overguards' aggressive looks, Lan Ling Nua's mood was delighted. This is the consequence of not knowing your own limits. Chapter 25-24. But the smiles on their faces didn't last for long. Only to see 10 overguards walking up to them, one on the left and one on the right, lifting the both of them up. Hey, you've caught the wrong person. Let go of me. How dare you? Lan Ling Nua was lifted up by the two guards and her feet couldn't touch the ground as she frantically scolded them. Xia Lingling was so infuriated that her face turned red. You dare to lay a hand on me? Do you believe that I will ask Uncle Monarch to chop off your heads? Let go of me. But no matter how they shouted and scolded, they were firmly held down by the guards, unable to move at all. The both of them were shouting and scolding, but Yin Yanxiu's expression remained calm as he didn't say a word. Because of Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nua's status. It was such a clamor at the main entrance. Adding on to the fact that Yin Yanxiu was here. The guests who were crowding around to watch the show were almost packed. There were quite a number of guests who had been queuing up at the entrance, watching the show from the start till the end. Seeing Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nua being held up by the guards without any energy to retaliate, they started laughing. When one person laughed, 100 people laughed at the same time. Xia Lingling and Lan Ling Nua were both annoyed and ashamed when they heard the laughter. Xia Lingling felt so wrong that her tears started to fall. Lan Ling Nua was still considered to have some rationality as she bit her lower lip tightly as she stared hatefully at Yiqing Luo. Following that, she pitifully softened her voice as she sobbed softly, "Young sect matriarch, your subordinates have captured the wrong people. Tell them to let me and Ling Ling off, alright? Xianxia's brows raised slightly as he looked at her. Lan Ling Nua was delighted as she tried her best to act pitiful. I'm in so much pain from their grabbing. Young sect master asked them to let me off. Ling Ling and I will absolutely not haggle over them capturing us wrongly. You didn't capture the wrong person. A calm voice interrupted Lan Ling Nua's words. Lan Ling Nua was stunned as though she couldn't react in time. She saw Xianxia looking at her fixedly with obvious disgust in his eyes. East Lan Region Lord and Little Region Lord don't feel that this Qinghua sect is disgusting, feeling that it affects your mood and feeling that you can't take it any longer? If that's the case, this young sect master will grant your wish and send you away from the Qinghua sect, lest you offend the two of them. Lan Ling Nua's face flushed red from Xianxia's words. These words were indeed said by her to Xiao Lingling. Everyone present heard it. They couldn't deny it. At this moment, no matter how stupid Lan Ling Nua was, she understood Xianxia wasn't there to help her and Xiao Lingling. Instead, he was here to help that slut Yi Luo. A slut will always be a slut. She actually hooked up with young sect master. Xianxia took in the sinister look on Lan Ling Nua's face and frowned slightly. He didn't feel any pity for this idiot princess who only knew how to cause trouble and bully others with her power. He glanced sideways and looked at Yiqing Luo. Dear guests, sorry to have disturbed your mood. Today's unhappiness at Qinghua clan will definitely compensate you in the future. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up as she politely nodded her head. Many thanks to young sect master for helping us out of this predicament. Xianxia's gaze was burning as he stared at Yiqing Luo's face, and after some time his smile deepened. We should be the ones apologizing for delaying everyone's time. I'll bring you to the main hall to take your seats. Then we'll have to trouble young sect master. Yiqing Luo didn't reject Xianxia's kind intentions. After all, young sect master would personally send them to the main hall. There would definitely not be anyone who would find trouble with them on the way. They weren't afraid of trouble. But this was Qinghua sect's patriarch's birthday banquet. Chapter 25-25. When the crowd saw Xianxia's courteous look towards Yiqing Luo and the rest, they couldn't help but started to guess their identities. Especially the young miss who had ridiculed Yiqing Luo and the rest in order to please the two princesses earlier. Her face turned pale as she scolded the two princesses harshly in her heart. She also pushed this debt onto the two princesses. It was all their fault for not recognizing Mount Tai. They actually treated young sect masters' distinguished guests as people from small forces, causing them to humiliate the distinguished guests. Those who were able to enter Qinghua clan today, even the lowest status was a small force which had a place in the pugilistic world. Among the crowd there were naturally many distinguished people. Not knowing if Xianxia did it on purpose, those few guards who were holding Lan Ling Nua and Xiao Lingling stood rooted on the spot and didn't leave. They allowed the onlookers to point at them and snicker at them. Apparently they wanted everyone to see Lan Ling Nua and Xiao Lingling's embarrassing looks. Especially when there were many distinguished guests who had just entered Qinghua clan's residence. They couldn't help but ask about the reason when they saw this scene. 1 to 10, 10 to 100. The originally bustling Qinghua clan became even more lively. Even if there were people from the East Continent when they walked past, they intentionally pretended that they didn't know the princess who was held up by the guards and had lost all her face. Since when had Lan Ling Nua and Xiao Lingling suffered such humiliation? They had always been envied by the crowd. He had always stood in the crowd and laughed at others from high above. But now, this bunch of lowly people actually dared to stand by the side and laugh at them? This bunch of lowly people, how could they be compared to Uncle Monarch? They didn't save them, didn't plead for them, and even laughed at them. Lan Ling Nua's arrogant and conceited heart had suffered a serious blow. Everything was because of that slut Yi Luo. Secretly seducing the young sect master of Qinghua clan and even pretended that she didn't know Xianxia. Was he intentionally making fun of her? What a Qinghua clan! What a Yi Luo! When she returned to the East Continent, she would make Qinghua clan fall completely. What four great sects! Did they really think they were something? Seeing Xianxia gently and elegantly accompanying Yiqing Luo towards that ordinary-looking carriage, as though he was talking to the person in the carriage. Immediately after, Xianxia personally pulled the reins of the carriage with a face full of smiles. One had to know, After entering the Joy clan residence, regardless of whether it was a carriage or a sedan, it had to be carried to a special place for carriages and sedan. No matter who it was, they were not allowed to use carriages in the Qingyue sect. But unexpectedly, the young sect master of the Qinyu sect actually took the initiative to lead the way for the person in the carriage. Who was the person in the carriage? How could he have such a great reputation? The honored guests recalled how Lan Ling Nuo and Xiao Lingling called them lowly commoners and said the people in the carriage were lowly commoners with no status or status. Just by looking at Yin Yanxio's attitude, it could be understood. The person in the carriage was not someone an ordinary person could afford to offend. He wondered if the two princesses' faces hurt. He felt the mocking and disdainful gazes coming from all directions. All of them seemed to be laughing at them for overestimating themselves. Lan Ling Nuo was so infuriated that her entire body was trembling. She wanted to struggle, but she couldn't break free from the restraints of the guards. Chapter 25-26. Following Lan Ling Nuo's call, the surrounding guests automatically made way for them. Immediately, a group of about 15 people were trying to sneak away from this conspicuous place. But unfortunately, Lan Ling Nuo's call. Even if they wanted to sneak away, it was impossible. Prime Minister Sun, stop hiding. I know it's you. Hurry up and come over here to save me. Lan Ling Nuo shrieked angrily when she saw that group of people still cowering in fear. This Prime Minister Sun wasn't anyone else. He was the East Water Continent's Prime Minister Sun, who they met when they went to the Treasure Pavilion's auction to retrieve the Sky Yuan serene grass. When Prime Minister Sun heard Lan Ling Nuo's voice, he was so angry that his body trembled. He tensed his body, not wanting to bother about Lan Ling Nuo at all. One must know that Qingyue sect's sovereign's birthday banquet should be attended by him as the Prime Minister. But Lan Ling Nuo insisted on joining in the fun. The monarch favored Lan Ling Nuo, and he also had the idea of having Lan Ling Nuo serve as the representative of the East Water Continent's imperial family to consolidate their power. Prime Minister Sun almost went bankrupt when he bid for the Sky Yuan serene grass and was beaten back to the third stage by Yiqing Luo. Today his prime minister position was in jeopardy. He had racked his brains to stabilize his position as prime minister. He also wanted to befriend Qingyue sect's sovereign. After the monarch announced Lan Ling Nuo as the East Water Continent's royal family's representative, he used his Sun family's identity to come to the North Water Continent. He didn't expect their East Water Continent's princess had created such a huge mess. It wasn't something that his Sun family could handle. But Lan Ling Nuo actually stopped him in front of everyone to help Lan Ling Nuo, which would definitely offend Qingyue sect. After all, Lan Ling Nuo's current situation was obviously done intentionally by Qingyue sect's young matriarch. Not helping. It would only make the East Water Continent's royal family a laughing stock. The East Water Continent's royal family would become the laughing stock of the Nirvana realm. Prime Minister Sun, the young sect master of the Great Elation sect, actually dared to treat me in such a manner. For the sake of a lowly person, you don't even put the East Wave Imperial clan in your eyes. Do you still want to sit back and watch? Don't tell me you want to see our East Wave Imperial family being trampled on by anyone. When Lan Ling Nuo saw that Prime Minister Sun still hadn't come over, she angrily roared again. Her eyes were bloodshot and filled with rage. Prime Minister Sun broke out in a cold sweat. Previously he was still hesitating whether he should come forward to plead for Lan Ling Nuo. As soon as Lan Ling Nuo said this, he didn't need to hesitate at all. Princess, as the representative of the East Wave Imperial family, you should show the demeanor of the East Wave continent when you attend the birthday banquet of the sect leader of the Qingyue sect. How can you make such a ruckus in the Elation sect? Prime Minister Sun frowned and rebuked her with a look of exasperation. Your Highness, before we set off, I have taught you many times about etiquette. You are a disgrace to the royal family. Lan Ling Nuo was mocked and ridiculed by the people around her. At this moment, even the Prime Minister of the Imperial family dared to point at her nose and criticize her? How could Lan Ling Nuo accept this? How dare you? Do you think that I'm someone who you can criticize? Prime Minister Sun, if you don't ask these people to let me go, I will ask my cousin the Emperor to remove your position as Prime Minister when I return to the East Wave continent.